Hello,
Hello.
Catherine. I know it's late for you, so thank you so much for staying up late.
Oh, that's my favorite, time of the day, and I love moderating. So I'm here.
Okay.
How are you, by the way?
Doing great. I don't want to take up too much more time because this is a exciting thing. So let's have you introduce everyone. We'll bring them all on, and I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah, we're gonna do it a little bit differently. So first of all, thank you for watching, and we hope that you're enjoying the show. And I hope that this is very knowledgeable for you guys. And I have an amazing list of speakers and panelists, and here they are. They're gonna introduce themselves.
Oh.
Hi everyone. Hello. Okay, so we have a lot of discuss, right? So I'm just gonna, go ahead and ask you to introduce yourself. Let's start with Fred because Jamie was just talking. So Fred.
Hi, I'm Fred Thiel. I'm the CEO of Marathon Digital Holdings.
Short, sweet. Sheldon.
Hi, yes, I'm Sheldon Bennett. I'm the CEO of DMG Blockchain Solutions.
Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Gagnon. I am the Chief Mining Officer for Bitfarms.
That's a Chief Mining Officer. That's awesome. And Jamie.
Jaime Leverton, the CEO of Hut 8 Mining.
Yeah, that was very short. I love it. So we're just going to, go ahead and discuss. With this panel, we decided kind of to dive into what crypto mining really is and how we can make money and what this thing is all about, because obviously crypto mining has been in headlines for a very long time. So we're going to start with obviously what is crypto mining and how exactly it works. And I think we have I think Sheldon wanted to discuss that.
Well, thank you. I think any of us could explain what crypto mining is and how it works, as we all do it. And in the past, I used to give conferences in person, and I would talk about what crypto mining is, and I would start talking about, cryptocurrency from, cryptography and integers and mathematics, and I would look up, 20 different people would be looking at me going, what is this about? I'm not at a university lecture on mathematics. So, the kind of simple way to say it is cryptocurrency or crypto mining is a process where we use a lot of compute power to solve a cryptographic puzzle. Turns around and it's what we call proof of work. It does work, and in solving that puzzle, we've completed something, and at the end of it, a block is posted. Cryptocurrency is minted or created to pay for that block or that work that's done, and transaction fees are included in there. And it's a really simplistic way of saying, miners, crypto blocks, transactions.
I'm sorry, I thought we lost you for a second there. Yeah, we lost you. You said in a simple way, and we lost you.
You see how boring it is explaining the mechanics of a cryptographic puzzle in a block? even the internet doesn't want to hear it. But let me say it a different way.
That is not.
Okay. Let me say it a different way. When you think about crypto mining, just think that a lot of power is used, a lot of math is used, right? And this is called proof of work. We're going to talk about that in another question. The proof of work is really replacing in a financial transaction. And so right now, when I want to do a transaction, it goes through a bank. I trust the bank's going to do what I say. I put $1 in to a bank. I trust that when I come back tomorrow, I can take $1 out. So a lot of people talk about crypto mining and cryptography and Bitcoin as an automation of trust. We trust the algorithms. We trust the technology is going to do something for us. And a simplistic method of thinking of this is crypto mining is really about automating trust. But in automating trust, we're using power of proof, right? So we're not doing this for nothing. And we're transacting back and forth with a little friction because there's little getting in between us with this proof of trust. And so I think about crypto mining. What is it? It's using technology to automate trust that was actually done by people in the past. So we're just embracing technology in a new way. So it's a simple way to think about it.
Very well put. Ben, could you walk us through the difference between Bitcoin mining, Ethereum mining, and any other crypto mining?
Sure. There's not too much difference between Ethereum proof of work mining and Bitcoin mining. Really, the only big difference right now is the hardware that you're using to do the actual mining operation and how the payments are calculated. Effectively, it's the same process that we're doing. We're both processing transactions. We're both securing the coins that are in people's wallets, whether they're Ethereum or Bitcoin. And then we're getting paid to secure that coin in people's wallets and getting paid to make those transactions safe and secure and make sure that those transactions are valid transactions. The only real difference does tend to be in the hardware and the rules regarding change. So with Bitcoin, what we have is a commoditized mining industry. The hardware has been commoditized. The price is very, very transparent and flows with market profitability and price. And because we know that there's not going to be any changes or any major changes to the protocol in the next 4, 8, 12, 16 going on, we know that the value of this equipment is going to track very, very predictably. The big difference is with Ethereum. Ethereum does have an agenda of a changing quickly and rapidly through innovation over time. And so with that also does come changes to the underlying economics attached with Ethereum mining, and does attach some volatility to the actually mining hardware that you're using to conduct the Ethereum mining. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. We have ASICs for Bitcoin. We also have ASICs for Ethereum, and we have other hardware that can run Ethereum too, like GPUs and FPGAs and other sorts of equipment. But essentially, it's the same hardware and it's very similar math.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, this is the question that Sheldon suggested you're going to answer, but this is
Thanks, Sheldon.
You're in the prep call, but I'm interested in that as well, and hopefully the audience is also interested in that as well. How do miners make money?
Well, I actually think Sheldon and Ben both touched on it. You can almost think of miners as the Mint and the Visa MasterCard. So we process all of the transactions on the Bitcoin network, and we get paid a fee for processing those transactions. And then because we are the Mint, if you will, we bring new Bitcoin into existence through our mining activities, and we receive what's called a block reward in exchange for doing that work. And currently we receive, if we are to be the successful recipient of a block, that pays out 6.25 Bitcoin. So over time, we know that the last Bitcoin will be mined in the year 2140. So it is pre-programmed. And between now and then, transaction fees will increase as a percentage of a miner's revenue over time, and the block rewards will decrease. So that for in the year 2141, a miner's revenue will all be from transaction fees.
Okay, Fred, could you talk a little bit about who is making more money right now and why? Is it Ethereum miners or Bitcoin miners, and why?
Well, let me start by saying we don't mine Ethereum, so I'm most probably not the most educated person regarding the economics of Ethereum mining. But when it comes to Bitcoin mining, it's obviously a huge industry. By the nature of the way proof of work operates, we as miners have to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in CapEx for mining equipment, infrastructure, and power to operate our mining operations that then validate all the transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain. And depending on the price of Bitcoin, the revenues, the daily revenues in Bitcoin mining can be between $30 and $60 million a day. What a lot of people don't realize who aren't in the industry is that there are a finite number of Bitcoin mined per day. It's 900 per day for now. At the next halvening, it'll be 450, and 4 years after that, it'll be 225, and so on. So the more people that come into the mining industry doesn't mean that there'll be more Bitcoin mined. It simply means there are more people all fighting for those 900 Bitcoin. And so with the drop off in mining in China, all of a sudden, those that remained mining had a greater share of those 900 Bitcoin a day. Now that miners are coming back online in Kazakhstan, and you're seeing more miners come online in the US, you're also seeing a lot of very large companies that are very well capitalized out of the power sector and other areas coming into mining. You'll see an explosion of Bitcoin mining hash capacity, which will essentially lower the revenues for every existing miner today unless they grow their capacity in the same direction. So for example, we're increasing our hash rate from 2 to 13 exahash over the course of the next 12 months. If it was a static market and you had the same amount of global hash rate going on, in theory, you could say we'll grow our revenue by 6 times as many Bitcoin as we're producing today. But we fully expect the global hash rate to be about 180% higher than where it is today by the end of next year. So it's not a linear kind of calculation for people. So making money in the Bitcoin mining world requires lots of capital. It requires being able to tie up power at the right prices, and then being able to continue to grow and have the capital to grow. And it's a business where I think longer term, really the big, well-capitalized companies, either the power companies that move into the business or the large enterprise miners like ourselves, Riot, and others, are going to be really the only people who can afford to be in the business, because it's just the margins are going to get fairly compressed over time.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That is a little bit depressing, but that is true. Ben, could you? Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone.
I'm just going to add to what Fred said. Maybe another way to think about it is there's about 330,000 Bitcoins created in a year. If you just use a number like $50,000 of Bitcoin US, you have something like $16 billion of newly created or newly minted Bitcoin. And then if you look at the cost in general of a Bitcoin miner to create a Bitcoin, so the energy cost and operations, you probably have about $5 billion of cost to make $16 billion of new revenue or new capital into the industry. So Bitcoin miners are sitting on sort of $11 billion of capital that's coming to the Bitcoin miners, whether it's the public companies or the private companies, but in general as an industry. So when you think about this from like a potential of being a shareholder of the industry, you have to think, if you take away the cost of creating a Bitcoin, you look.
We're losing you again.
At how much money
Come
is
back.
generated to this $11 billion.
We lost you a little bit, but you're back.
Oh, I was just saying, at the end of the day, about $11 billion after cost is created in Bitcoin companies, whether they're public or private.
Oh, okay. Ben, are you comfortable talking about Ethereum mining in terms of comparison of who made the most money and why in, let's say, August? You're muted. I think you're muted.
Sorry, comparing Ethereum and Bitcoin mining revenues for August?
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head or in front of me right now, but I'm fairly confident that Bitcoin mining produced significantly more amounts of revenue than Ethereum mining. This should have always been the case and should always be the case as we move forward. One thing I think that is lost upon people as we do have halvings occur and as the amounts of total Bitcoins that we're mining do reduce over time, this is largely offset by the exponential increases in underlying Bitcoin price. And so while we are seeing smaller amounts of Bitcoin in terms of revenue derived in Bitcoin, if you're looking at revenue derived in US dollars or RMB or yen or whatever currency you're using, those are continuing to increase over time and will continue to go even further still as we move over towards $100,000 Bitcoin and beyond. So that's a really, really positive part about this market. We have fixed operational costs as miners. It does not cost us any more to operate, 2 exahash or 1 exahash at 30,000 Bitcoin than it does at 50,000 or $100,000 Bitcoin. The only difference is our gross mining margins and our profitability. That's the only difference. And so as Bitcoin price continues to appreciate, we have that fixed cost. It's all upside for miners. And mining today is a significantly more profitable business than it was, 8 years ago, back when the block reward was still, 25 Bitcoin. This is a very, very good time to be in the industry. And as we have the institutional adoption into Bitcoin, I think what we're also seeing is institutional adoption into Bitcoin miners specifically, because mining is one of the best ways that you can actually turn your Bitcoin investment into more Bitcoin. And it's the reason why is because our revenues are derived in Bitcoin. We're one of the only industries in the world where our revenues are 100% derived in Bitcoin. And as we chase this inflation rabbit, all other businesses whose revenues are derived in USD, they're going to have trouble keeping pace with trying to preserve their purchasing power in a rapidly inflating environment if their revenues are based in that inflationary asset. For us, with our revenues based in Bitcoin, as inflation continues to take place, all that inflation automatically applies itself to greater profitability on the Bitcoin miners. It starts working into our power purchases, where our power contracts now cost less because the dollar is worth less. And it starts automatically feeding all that profitability over to us, both in our fixed operating costs being reduced in terms of a purchasing power, valuation, as well as that increase in the value of the underlying asset as well. So Bitcoin mining is, I'm sure, much more profitable than Ethereum mining now, and will continue to be for the foreseeable future.
Fair enough. I haven't found, actually, and unfortunately, I haven't found any information on Bitcoin mining for August, but I guess this is because we are just in September, on the very first day of September. But I did find information about Ethereum, and Ethereum mining revenue figure for August actually is accounted for $1.65 billion. $1 billion, and it represents the growth up by 60% compared to July. And you know why? Do you have any idea why that happened? Because even though we had Ethereum London hard fork, right, and the transaction fees were supposed to go lower, but do you have any idea why that happened? Why the revenues still grew? I think you probably know the answer, but it's
mostly just underlying price of Ethereum. it's the only thing that's driving those revenue figures. So sure. People are speculating on the London hard fork and what can happen with Ethereum POS and 2.0. This is something that I think people are overestimating. It's something that's been promised by the Ethereum Foundation for 5 years, that it's months away. It is not months away. It's never been months away, and it's going to be continuously kicked down the road for years, because there is an incentive by the Ethereum Foundation to continuously delay. If they ever reach Ethereum POS 2.0, and it's not everything that everybody has always dreamed it to be for the last 5 years, the valuation will fall to zero quite instantly. And so the incentive is going to be to protect the underlying investments that's already been made into Ethereum by kicking the can down the road and continuously delaying. I don't think Ethereum mining will stop anytime soon. And the more that they can hype the future promises of Ethereum, the better Ethereum mining revenues will be as well. But this is something that's going to continue a long time, and it's a game that they've played for 5 years.
Jamie, you look like you wanted to say something.
No, I was just going to add, I mean, Ethereum's having an incredible day today. Like we're seeing price appreciation in Ethereum just on the day, far exceeding what Bitcoin is doing. And we're seeing that more and more regularly, where Ethereum is kind of diverging from Bitcoin performance and increasingly having these days of outperformance, which of course directly goes to the profitability of Ethereum miners. Mining Ethereum also uses significantly less power. So the operating expenses involved in mining Ethereum are significantly less than those for mining Bitcoin, which speaks to the underlying profitability of the activity itself. And I was nodding along with Ben, because I absolutely couldn't agree more that proof of stake is going to continue to get kicked down the road, which is great for Ethereum miners for sure.
So I'm gonna just give you the answer, guys. The fact that Ethereum mining revenue went up compared to July is because of the huge interest in NFTs. I'm sorry to say that, but this is obviously Ethereum price, but at the same time the NFT craze. So this is something that influenced the price, the revenue a lot. So the next question is something that I expect we're going to be talking for a while. Is Bitcoin Mining Council, right? So back, I think that was May, back in May, when the one and only Elon Musk decided to stop accepting Bitcoin for Tesla vehicles, because he said that Bitcoin mining, hurts the environment in just an imaginable, in a bad way, in a really bad way. So this kind of started the conversation of the crypto mining and the environment, right? And right after that, here it is, North American Bitcoin Mining Council. And fortunately, we have representatives of this council here today. So I don't think there's any order. So just whenever, whoever would like to speak first. So tell us about the concept of council. Why in the first place that happened, and this particular council was created? So as to why.
So I can start. Oh no.
Go ahead, Jamie. No, go ahead.
Thanks, Fred. Really, the core principle behind the council, and it's not just a North American council, it is a global industry-wide council. It's open to any Bitcoin miner, and we've had really great participation coming from around the globe, which is amazing to see in such a short period of time. But really the purpose of the council, and we declare it on the website, was to come together and have a collective voice to educate, to be transparent, to talk about the benefits of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, really as a collective. Because prior to that, we were each trying to counteract this narrative as individual entities, and we didn't have a collective voice to challenge this big collective kind of negative narrative that came out on the back of Elon's tweet. So really that was the purpose of forming the council.
I was listening to a conversation, one of the conversation on Twitter's that I think was led by Michael Saylor. And I love the idea that someone actually said it out loud. Instead of doing this as competitors, right, and competing with each other, it's actually a great, as you said, a collective, right, a great way to come together and to decide what's best for, for everyone. And that's just going to make the industry better. So yeah, that is actually pretty crazy if you think about it, that everybody comes together and work like that. So
Catherine, I would just like to jump in there. We're not, as a council, we're not collectively deciding on any sorts of actions at all. I mean, all we are is putting out information in a transparent and clear manner. And I think there is an important call to do that, because what we've seen against Bitcoin time and time again, and I think the ESG narrative is just the latest attempt to throw FUD and to throw some misinformation at Bitcoin to try and drive the price lower. We have seen organized disinformation campaigns against Bitcoin, and we're not going to compete against organized disinformation if we're not organized. So what we really need to do is we need to counter that organized disinformation campaign with an organized informational campaign. And I think that's here what the council is doing. We're collecting this information, we're calculating it, we're producing reports, and we're providing transparency to the industry so that people can clearly see that we're not causing the harm that these articles and these journalists are, claiming with hysterical articles that we're doing. None of the data is agreeing with them. And many of the sources that they're using as a basis for those articles, digeconomists primarily, the math is incredibly bad, and it does not track real world events. When the China mining ban happened, the Digeconomist index, which is the premier index for tracking electricity consumption and pollution, remained flat at all-time highs as the network curtailed 50%. His estimates stayed at 100% the same, and they flatlined there for a little while. And if you go back on Digeconomist today, we're at all-time highs today, despite being at significantly lower levels of network participation than we were just several months ago. And because of demand, we're actually using much more energy efficient machines, prioritizing the energy efficiency over the older stuff. So the underlying data is awful and couldn't be more wrong, and has been proven wrong time and time again with these results. So we need very organized campaigns against this disinformation.
Well, yeah, thank you for clarifying that. That is very important actually to know. And what is what kind of power, alternative power, is used the most when it comes to alternative sources of energy for crypto mining? I think you've mentioned that, or not yet?
Well, there's
I think
clearly an even fairly good mix of wind.
I'm sorry, Fred,
hydro.
you're breaking up a little bit. Sorry, you're breaking up.
I think there's a... Yeah, unfortunately, I think I've been having a bandwidth issue.
Yeah, I'll jump in for Fred since he's having connection issues.
Yeah, please, go ahead, Ben.
I mean, the power mix is pretty well distributed. I think pretty much every energy source on the planet does have some Bitcoin mining component attached with it, whether that's nuclear, hydro, gas, coal, wind, geothermal. I think every power source on the planet is represented pretty well. The real thing is not really about the power source, but it's about the economics attached to that power source, which has led to a lot of hydro because there's very little operating expense attached with hydropower, as well as a lot of like flare gas and wasted natural gas, because that is a huge component of the North American energy mix. But they're all very well represented.
Yeah, I think adding to what Ben said, probably hydro is where a lot of Bitcoin miners are going. And it makes sense. And I think we've all spoke about this before. When you look at hydro, just look at aluminium. When you look at the amount of power that's needed to create aluminium or aluminum, depending on where you are saying it, it takes a massive amount of power to transform bauxite to power to cut your costs. The cheapest is hydro. So I think that's where it's going to go.
Yeah. Okay, that was great. We lost you just for a second, but you're back. Okay, so I think the final question about the council is, what should we expect? And I think Ben actually put it very well, that the main idea is to provide information and to make sure that this is correct, like accurate information, right? But is there anything else we as just observers of the crypto industry or investors and or traders should expect from the council? And can we be a part of that too, or should we be a part of that?
Well,
Jamie,
the council's... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Fred, go ahead. I'll ask Jamie a little bit later.
Just going to say that, the council's mission, as Ben said, is to educate and share information. That's the extent of it. So we're just a group of miners who are publishing our data and trying to educate the marketplace regarding the types of power we use and what our objectives are, or our goals and commitments are going forward. That's it. So, that's public information. It's not a decision-making body. It's not a lobbying body. It's simply a group of industry players who are deciding to share information because we're trying to combat, as Ben very eloquently said, the FUD that exists out there, especially in regards to energy. So we'll be publishing data each quarter on how we're progressing along our shift towards more and more renewable energy. The data we've published to date says that we're about 65% carbon neutral in our energy mix, and continuing to grow. And I think, it's a group of people who really just want to educate. So I think if investors are interested in learning more, go to the website, see the reports we publish, but it's not like we're going to be holding meetings or conferences to debate topics. We'll continue to do quarterly, Twitter Spaces events where we share our data and bring on some experts to help educate the public. And those are great for people to attend.
I hope that Jamie did not get upset because we lost her for a second there. Hopefully she'll come back. But let's talk about exodus of miners from China. Oh, hi, Jamie. I was worried that you got upset.
No, that was not a protest vote. That was I needed power desperately. My apologies.
Okay, whew, that's okay. So the next question is the exodus of miners from China. Sheldon, could you tell us about why do you think that happened? Why would China need to ban miners in the first place? And then how that impacted the rest?
Well, I'm not the best at government policy in China, but
conspiracy theorist. I need conspiracy.
There's a lot of different theories. One of the most common would be that China has its own digital currency that it wants to support, and probably wants, Chinese patrons to work within the confines of their own digital currency. The other is maybe they're reacting to international pressure about the amount of coal being used. And there's a lot of talk about coal being used by Chinese miners, although there's a lot of them that use hydro as well. So there's a lot of disinformation, or at least not very much data on what's correct there. But at the end of the day, a decision was made. It's being pushed through or enforced. I don't know what word you want to use. And you're seeing this exodus of miners out of China into other jurisdictions, North America being a big one, Canada and the US, but you also see it in Russia. Kazakhstan's another big one, parts of South America, just jurisdictions that are open and welcome to miners coming into their jurisdictions and operating. And for North America, this I think everybody will agree on this panel, but I could be wrong. I think this is a good thing. And I've said this a few times. When you look at the hash rate and you look at the use of Bitcoin, you find this disproportionate amount of hash rate being controlled or built or run or managed by Chinese miners versus the amount of transactions, how much they actually use Bitcoin. And that's because it's been banned in China for usage. And so I think it's a great thing that the hash rate that, is the infrastructure of Bitcoin and the uses of Bitcoin, which is happening in more Western countries, not all, but in general, we're using a lot of it, has come together into, countries that are creating the hashing or, providing the infrastructure and using the Bitcoin.
Jamie, I know Sheldon touched a little bit on that, but how do you think this particular ban of mining in China is going to reshape the entire industry? Are we going to see bigger players, including like international players that Sheldon mentioned, or what kind of influence it's going to have, or already having on the industry?
I think the biggest impact we already saw in the dropping of the hash rate by 50%, and the rest of us obviously have benefit from that. But I think broadly, it's good for the industry. I mean, Bitcoin lost half its hash rate and didn't flinch, so it speaks to the resiliency of the network. It just continued to operate as planned. And I think the decentralization is good. To Sheldon's point, we probably had an over concentration of hash rate in China. And so getting it more broadly distributed globally is again, a good thing for Bitcoin overall.
And I think sorry, go on, Fred.
Just to comment on what Sheldon said and Jamie said, I think China's objectives here had more to do with foreign exchange controls than anything else. China today, if you read what's happening in the papers, kids are only allowed to play video games 3 hours a week. Industries are being directed to redirect where they contribute their profits. The for-profit education industry has been shut down in China. People aren't allowed to make a profit in educating kids because they want to equalize the abilities for children in the countryside to have the same benefits and rights and privileges and opportunities as the kids in the cities. And so they're trying to create more of an even society using central control to do that. And one of the key issues that China had was currency control. There was so much money leaving the country via Bitcoin that they first stopped the trade in Bitcoin. And then, of course, if you're mining Bitcoin, you're earning Bitcoin, people can buy that Bitcoin from you and then move their funds offshore. So the prohibition of mining of Bitcoin had more to do with currency control than anything else in China. It happened to be convenient that it also allowed them to say they're shutting it down for a smaller carbon footprint for the country, but really it was about currency control. And that's one of the reasons why, as you look at the shift of all that hash rate internationally, the US today is still less than 20% of the global hash rate. And yet you have most probably over 50 or 60 exahash coming online in this country over the next 12 months. And it will still be under 20% of the global hash rate, most probably even then. So that shows the fabulous nature of how Bitcoin operates. It is a distributed network. No one country or even group of countries can control it. And it really will operate even with somebody who nearly had 50% of the global hash rate tried to shut it down. So I think that really speaks to the strength of the Bitcoin network, both technologically and also from the industry participants.
Thank you for that insight. Yeah, that was actually a very, very well put thought. And I think this is going to be our last question. Supply chain issues and, what kind of issues crypto miners experience, because there are a lot of equipment involved. I think this was something that Sheldon was very worried about, but I'd like to start with Ben because, he's been silent for a while now. So can we talk a little bit about supply chain, how reliable it is in terms of equipment, and how should the supply chain be distributed? Are there supposed to be like local players to make sure that there's necessary equipment involved? I think you're muted, or maybe just quiet. Very quiet. Probably something with the sound. Maybe, yeah. No, we can't unfortunately hear you. I'll ask Sheldon meanwhile. Okay, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, we'll give Ben a chance. You can butt in anytime you want, Ben. your audio working. But the supply chain is an issue, and again, it's an issue for crypto miners because we need chips. I mean, chips are the biggest part of our industry to build new servers and efficient servers. But we also have the issue of COVID, and we have all the global issues of supply in trade, sort of geopolitical between China and other countries. And I'm in Canada, and we have our issues with China, and other people in the US, and they have their issues with China. And that's where our production comes from, mainly China, Taiwan, but the companies that own it, Bitmain, MicroBT, Gagnon are mainly Chinese companies, and they sort of control the manufacturing of Bitcoin mining equipment. So you have, one issue is what's happening in the supply chain, i.e. raw materials to make chips. And it's not just us. You saw, things about GM and Ford talking about having chips to make cars. Our chips are different, but there's a supply chain issue. And then two, you have companies, and Ben alluded on this earlier, that price the equipment based on how they see the revenue of that equipment being. And so you have this surge in price because the amount of money that can be made with Bitcoin mining equipment has surged as well. So you've got sort of two different things going on here. So you have difficulty making the amount of volume that's being demanded from market players that want to buy it. So that's a raw materials issue. And then you have this escalating price of Bitcoin that's increasing the price of the equipment. And then you have us companies, private or public, trying to figure out how to order and purchase and get the stuff running to get our ROI, or return on our investment for this equipment.
Yeah, I would take a slightly controversial perspective on that. I think actually there's a glut of hardware today. The shortage is transformers, switchgear, hosting capacity, and power. As an example, we have hundreds of thousands of miners coming inbound, and luckily we tied up capacity for hosting long ago. So we don't have a challenge there. But if you look at the Chinese miners trying to come into North America, they're out negotiating for power contracts and infrastructure, and transformers, high voltage transformers are 14-month lead time. Mid voltage transformers, 12 to 10-month lead times. Switch gear, 12 to 18-week lead times. Those are much greater issues today than the hardware issues are, because everybody's trying to come in and build infrastructure. And a lot of those transformers actually are manufactured in China as well. And to Sheldon's comment about COVID and supply chain, that's affecting it. But as we look at the marketplace today, the single biggest impediment to people deploying miners is not miners; it's everything else.
That's a good point, Brad. I mean, it's true. Everything's affected. The price of copper has gone through the roof.
Yep.
And so what you're talking about also brings the migration, right? The infrastructure there has been turned off, and that infrastructure is not, I guess, for technical words, certified. It's not approved to be used in North America or other jurisdictions. So you can't pick up a transformer from China that was working and bring it to Canada or the US and drop it in and use it.
Right.
So that has to be manufactured. So part of this migration problem is an infrastructure problem to turn all that stuff on if it's coming into North America.
I think we don't have time, and probably Spencer is going to come just in a second. Hopefully, Spencer.
Damn right I am, Catherine. Damn right I am.
Hello, Spencer. So first of all, thank you guys so much for taking the time and participating in this panel. That was very valuable for me, and I hope our viewers also enjoyed that. Spencer, would you like to say something?
Yeah, no, just thanks to Ben, Jamie, Fred, Sheldon, Catherine. I mean, how many times do you get a group like this on the screen at the same time? So thank you guys so much for the conversation. We appreciate it. I know our chat, our viewers, they appreciate it. So again, thank you. Thank you all so much.